Well, what we do here a little bit is mess with the financial industry and just say, hey, there's a system out there that they built for you. And what we want to do is really kind of pull back the layers, pull back the curtain and show you what you're in for. One of the things that you'll hear and you'll read all the time in the media is the number one fear of all people going into retirement is I'm going to run out of money. And they want the financial industry to solve that problem. JP Morgan talked to, I can't believe this, 5 million people in retirement. That's a pretty big survey. And they said those big fears of running out of money and inflation's going to kill me are overblown. Greg, you've said it all along. It's, the price of bacon isn't going to ruin your retirement, is it?
It's been about 12, 13 years since anything bad's happened. So I think the fear is so far removed from a 2009, 10, when people are losing 40% of their investments kind of deal. And then you had a run of, during that same time period, 3 or 4 years of 0% interest rates. It probably gave people a lot of confidence. And their accounts back that up. You have accounts, if you're, we did this last week, maybe the week before, where we showed the S&P has grown like 600% since 2010, something along those lines, something monstrous. So your money's growing a lot. So you're feeling a lot more confident. So that's probably leading to this survey. But at the end of the day, this isn't a fear that retirees have. It's a fear they're fed. They are fed this fear by the financial industry daily, weekly, hourly, every TV show. They're talking about magic numbers. I think we might even have a magic number update later in the show. Mm-hmm. And when we take all that, for someone that is probably a novice or even unsophisticated when it comes to dollars, which most people are, because why wouldn't they be? They're not in the financial industry. They're believing these so-called experts. And if they're saying you should be scared, why would they disbelieve them? Why would they not believe Pfizer or a television show that says you should be scared? You're going to run out of money if you don't, take on so much growth and you don't have this much growth in your portfolio. If you have over $1 million, and you start thinking through how much income you receive from Social Security or pensions, and then you think about how much you actually spend, and you look at the delta. We brought up studies from the AARP. We brought up studies from Fidelity, and everyone does a study on how much people spend. And let's just say the amount is staggeringly low and much lower than I think most people would expect. It's like, Randy, we were seeing the average $1 million investable retiree spends roughly what, $60,000
a month. Yep.
Yeah. $60,000-$70,000 roughly. When we start to think about that and we back into, we're getting $50,000 in Social Security. Shoot, that means I'm only coming out of my savings $10,000 or $20,000. Mm-hmm. If you have $1 million, Randy, you know what that means? I mean, if you're, it's almost comical. You're just like, that means I need 1% growth a year in my $1 million investables to cover my expenses, to not eat up my principal, mm-hmm. or 2% or 3%, whatever. If you're a big spender and you're spending $80,000 or let's say you're spending $100,000, right? You're spending $100,000 a year and you're making $60,000 in Social Security. That means you need 4% produced from your $1 million of investments a year, $40,000, right? For the whole year. I think that's part of the frustration. When we were estate planning attorneys, if you didn't know that, I am an attorney. Please don't hold it against me. I actually started Ayler Stallings Law Firm with Tim Stallings back in 2010. That's how we got into this. But when we started seeing all this financial hoopla, Randy, hoopla, it's my new word, hoopla, a bunch of blah, blah, blah. The things that they're saying about people running out of money, like, so what if they say that? What does that mean for me? Well, here's what it means for you. It means deep down, you have a subconscious fear that you're not going to have enough money. So that's going to drive you to take more risk than you need. You're going to have to drive your car faster than it needs to go in retirement, which means there's a higher probability of a ticket, a crash, or serious injury while you're driving your dollars in the market, and you're taking on more risk than you need. When in reality, if we're benchmarking just what you need in retirement versus what they're telling you need, you have a much easier, safer ride where you can relax more, knowing that you're never going to run out of money. That is the whole idea, Randy, when we broke this down from obviously the book, the shows, and the income forecast that we do for everyone that meets us. We do it at no cost. If you come in and get a roadmap, and you call in and you say, hey, I want one of those roadmap things, we throw in the income forecast, which shows you what would be left in 25 years if you spent the same amount of money you did last year. Mm-hmm. And if you live the same type of retirement life you did last year, or if you haven't retired yet, you were guessing what you're going to spend, we'll push that out 25 years with a 5% return and hopefully show you that, oh my gosh, my money gets bigger. I should go spend more, which is the whole idea of retirement, is to do more fun stuff, not to have a big nest egg that grows and grows and grows. It's to do stuff and live your life and build memories. And I think that is what the financial advisor, world is missing. And hopefully we're pushing them to be better and start thinking about things about memories versus just dividends.
Many people walk into a retirement planner office thinking they have to beat the market in order to have a great retirement, and that is many times not the case. And Greg will show you that it's hardly ever the case. So what we would like to do is sit down and do your retirement math, and what we call it is a roadmap for retirement. Sitting down and looking at how much money you want in that market, maybe none. And we've got a place for you as well. Let's talk about taxes and fees, and let's open up that can that says long-term care and all that business as well. It's things we have to talk about. Let's get on talking about your retirement and really getting down to the nuts and bolts of it. Give us a look on our website. Getyourroadmap.com is our website. Getyourroadmap.com. There's a place for you to put a little information in there, and our team will reach out to you and say, hey, what are you interested in talking about? What's worrying you? And Greg, since we're in summertime, I mean, most people are going to take a flight of some time. They're going to fly someplace. And one of the questions they keep asking me now when I go, do you have any lithium batteries? Have you been asked that question when you get on a plane?
I have.
Okay.
And I'm always like, does anybody else? And they don't seem to really test. Like, I mean, is someone lying? Like, if they're that big of a issue, like, shouldn't we ban lithium batteries? Like, if they're like little grenades, I'm not feeling great
Exactly
about the TSA guys flagging batteries in the check luggage department.
Everybody, there should be something that tells you beep, 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 there's a lithium battery here. All right. So there's nothing that goes beep, beep, beep when you come in for a financial analysis in many times. But Greg, let's talk about fire starters in our portfolio. When you do your analysis, that roadmap for retirement, what is it that sticks out many times that goes, this is a problem. We can't have this in here.
I think there's two things. Can I say two? Do I get two?
Can I have two?
Can I do two? I mean, it is our show, Randy. We can probably, I could.
You make the rules.
All right. So the two things that get missed most often or the most surprising that aren't surprising. It's like, it's such a big risk. I can't believe it's not addressed. But given the topic, I can believe that it's not talked about by the industry. The first of which is taxes. And I'll explain to you quickly why. Your largest, or I should say, most likely your largest liability when it comes to taxes is going to be your IRA. You've socked your money away pre-tax over the course of retirement, and now you have this big taxable account. And everyone told you how to put money in, but no one tells you how to take money out. And when you get to retirement, it's supposed to be your pension, right? It's supposed to be this thing that you use and enjoy and spend. But then you get there and your financial advisor says, ooh, slow down, Smokey. You don't have to touch that thing until you're 73. And why would you want to pay taxes if you don't have to? Which, by the way, logically, if you didn't know any better, kind of makes sense. You're like, yeah, I hate taxes. I don't want to pay taxes. I'll wait till 73. Randy, if you have an infected finger and you don't address it, does it get better?
It gets worse.
You don't rub dirt in it and, you keep it dirty and make sure you don't shower that one finger, right? I mean,
no.
Sometimes you got to deal with the hard things, and taxes is one of the hard things in retirement that the financial industry, in my opinion, does a terrible job having the hard conversations. Because what you don't realize as a retiree, and the reason this is such a tricky one, is because bad things don't happen until people start dying. So things get missed. So if your husband passes, all of a sudden the taxes that are due on your IRA could theoretically double because you're going from a couple rate to a single rate. We call that the widow's penalty. And then when your surviving spouse passes, it goes to your kids at their tax rate. So we call that the kiddo's penalty. And at their point, they could be paying up to 40%. If they're in their highest earning tax years, Randy. I mean, don't even get me started with state taxes too. If your state has state tax. So or state income tax, and people think, it's going to be taxed at my rates. No. It gets taxed at your kids' rates, and they've changed the rules so they can't stretch it anymore. Everybody remembers there used to be a stretch IRA. That's gone. They only have 10 years. So this is a very real problem that gets missed by the financial industry because they don't put a plan together to de-tax that money, whether it be a Roth conversion or just get it taxed and put it over. It doesn't have to change investments. It just needs to be taxed. And no one wants to do that work or put the time in our opinion, or we don't see it being done regular enough because no one wants to say, you know what, how to beat Uncle Sam, Randy? Pay the taxes. Pay them on your terms. Utilize your lower tax rates. Your couple retired tax rates while you're alive, earlier in retirement. And then you're going to have the benefit of having a big Roth that you can hand off to your kids. That they'll get tax-free growth for the rest of, at least 10 years after the death of the survivor. These are ways to beat Uncle Sam in the long term, because if you have $1 million IRA, you could probably get that thing out if you're doing the right tax planning, 15 cents on the dollar maybe, depending on your income. So you're paying $150,000 to Uncle Sam, but if you screw this up, you could end up paying $400,000 to Uncle Sam if you hit the kiddos penalty and have to end up paying 40% income tax. I mean, that's a huge difference, and the reason no one catches it is because mom and dad are dead. That's why. And the kids just kind of throw their hands in the air and say, hey, man, this kind of stinks, but is what it is. I can still afford that place in Florida that we were looking at. So this gets missed. This is a fire starter. This is a lithium battery. Don't miss it. The second, Randy, is the 8,000 pound gorilla in the room, which is going to a nursing home. It's very clear why this gets missed, because nobody wants to talk about it. It's terrible, right? Everyone has a loved one that's been in a nursing home. Everyone's got a friend or a family member. It is not a scenario that people want to contemplate actually happening to them. So what's the easiest thing to do? Under the rug.
Ignore it. Yep.
Ignore it, push it on the rug. And the financial advisor obliges, because there's really not great solutions, right? Long-term care insurance has gotten really expensive and hard to qualify for. So people are like, well, I can't sell them insurance because they don't want to pay it, or the premiums keep going up, or whatever the boogaboo is with that. It ends. That conversation ends. But in reality, we talked about $1 million IRA having $300,000, $400,000 of risk of losing it. Well, shoot. At $120,000 a year of nursing home bills, with the average stays being 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. Well, shoot, Randy, you could see how that could be $300, $400, $500 million of expenses that could bankrupt your retirement. And I think that gets missed again because financial industry doesn't focus on it. It doesn't have experts. At Golden Reserve, we have elder law attorneys and estate planning attorneys down the hallway. It's how we actually started this business. And we understand how to navigate all of those risks, because it's what we did for our living as attorneys. And by adding this layer of planning into your retirement plan, we use asset protection, trust, and legal tools, not insurance, to protect against this risk, because we think it's the most cost effective and also one of the most effective ways to hedge. We're not, if bad things happen, Randy, sometimes you're going to have to bite some of the bullet, but let's hedge some of that risk. And I think that's the mindset you should have, is that I'm not going to plan to go in a nursing home. I'm going to plan, what if I go in a nursing home, right? You still have homeowners insurance, and you sure as heck don't want your house to burn down, but you have it. You want a little bit of backup plan of what happens if I have a prognosis like Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, and I need help aging, and I don't want to bankrupt my spouse. What's the plan there? I think we do a great job of addressing that with each of our roadmaps, Randy. It's part of our, 4-prong approach. One of those is long-term care, because I think it's always missed. I think it's always the lithium battery that sneaks through those carry-ons in retirement.
When we were talking about fire starters and you were talking about that, I was thinking about that old Drew Barrymore movie. Remember that, where she would just kind of make a face and everything would blow up? We don't want any fire starters in our portfolio.
Stephen King book, right?
Yeah, exactly right. Well, the big fire starters that Greg has identified are taxes and long-term care. Even if you were to have to bring somebody into your home to take care of you in some fashion, that is still a huge expense in retirement. And if you don't have some kind of stability there, some kind of coverage there, some kind of a plan for that, literally you just start writing checks. And can you imagine writing checks every single month for $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, maybe even more? That can empty a retirement account pretty quickly. Let's talk through the strategies that are out there that can protect you against that particular event in your latter years. Getyourroadmap.com, and there'll be a place to put a little information there. That'll trigger a phone call. Our team will reach out to you and talk through what you're interested in, what you're concerned about. Well, if you're going to go to a concert this summer, you'll probably have to buy your tickets through Ticketmaster, which has always been pretty much a pain, because you buy your tickets for $90 and then you finally get your bill. And why is this $150 now? It's all the fees that are associated with your tickets. Well, Ticketmaster now, they are turning over a new leaf. They say we're going to have upfront pricing. So that means when you buy your ticket for $90, you're going to know that it's going to cost you $150 before you actually have to see that with your credit card. But Greg, that still hurts. I mean, it still hurts, all those fees in there. And we all talk about that regularly here on the show. The fees that are built into the financial industry, A, they don't show them very easily. They're not that transparent. And B, man, can that really add up, especially over a 10, 20, and 30-year retirement.
100%, right? That is fees are a funny thing, Randy, because in our opinion, when I was a practicing estate planning attorney, and I would meet with, I think we counted one time, I was around 5,000 retiree meetings. So I've met with a lot of retirees over the course of our tenure when I was practicing with Tim. And I always thought fees would really, really make people mad, right? Like if you found out you were paying a fee that you didn't know about, you'd be angry, right? Like if they hid fees, you'd be angry. And when it came to the financial industry, it is a weird Stockholm sort of relationship. Okay. You know where I'm going with this?
Okay. You're connected and you know it's bad for you, but you can't unconnect.
Yes, right? It's like the kidnapper, right? The person that falls in love with the person that kidnapped them, right? Like so Stockholm syndrome. So I think there's a Stockholm syndrome when it comes to your financial advisor because they're so nice. They're so nice. They're such a great guy. They're a deacon. They're at the coffee. They're always talking to me. I've known them. They're my neighbor.
Play golf.
So nice.
Yeah.
They are world-class relationship managers. I am 100% in alignment. You want to talk about have a good time? Go out with some financial advisors. They are world-class good timers. Now, how does this relate to fees? It relates to fees because it makes it very hard to accept that you're being overcharged by someone you like. It's like no different than any relationship. If you like someone, it's hard to believe that they'd take advantage of you or that they'd not do what's in your best interest or whatever the case may be, right? And in the financial industry, they've done a really good job of layering complicated fees upon complicated fees like Ticketmaster. And by the way, I hate you, Ticketmaster. I hate you.
I knew that was coming.
I hate you, Ticketmaster. I don't care where you put the fees. They're all a ripoff. Department of Labor, please fix this. Washington, D.C., please fix this. Anyways, back to financial advisor fees. So when we really break this down, before we dive into the psyche anymore, there's two fees, right? There's the fees you pay your financial advisor that usually, it's a percentage. I'm paying 1%, I'm paying 1.25, I'm paying 1.5, whatever you're paying. And whatever accounts you have, they just slap the fee on it, and then it comes out every quarter or month or whatever. And then you have your investment fees that almost nobody understands because they're netted off the gains or added to losses. They're internal cost to a mutual fund, to a variable fund, variable annuity, ETF, index fund. All those have internal cost. And it's really hard to see what they are, Randy. So those are the parts that people don't understand. So when we started this business, we thought we'd show people, look, here's your investment fees, here's your financial advisor fees. And when we were adding it up, universally, we were seeing big numbers. We were seeing $1 million investment accounts that, people very, very commonly came across our table, and they were paying $25,000, $30,000 in fees. And you're like, what? And you'd be like, man, I'm going to show them. And then they just look at you and say, Bill's got to get paid, or Bill had a good year for us this year. You're like, the stock market did 12%. You did 8%. Like, what are you talking about? Bill did a good year. Like, Bill lost by 30%. He didn't even beat the market. So if the only thing they're doing is chasing indexes and trying to beat the stock market, their success is pretty binary. Either they beat the index or they didn't. I think that's a silly way to judge retirement. But that's what almost all financial advisors do. They try to talk about returns and beating the market and talk about diversification and all that fun stuff. So I'm always shocked at the relationship that fees to us people, and whenever we bring on new retirement planners, right? We have a lot of youngins that are coming in and they're so excited and they got that big fee. We have a fee analysis. They're ready to present it to the client. I'm like, be careful. They're like, oh no, they're going to choose us right away. I'm like, be careful. Stockholm syndrome. I'm telling you, because if you smack people over the head with this big fee, a couple things happen. First, they don't believe you because they've been eating dinner with Bill every Christmas party and having coffees and talking. This person's been in their life for 15 years and you've been in their life for 15 minutes. So they don't believe you about the fees. So it creates distrust. And two, they feel kind of stupid that they made a bad decision, which is never where you want to put a client in. And by the way, if I'm talking about you at home, you should never feel stupid, right? This system is $1 trillion system that has beat all of America for 40 years. Like it's built to beat you, right? It's built to be layers of fees hidden. Like you should never feel anything but, curious. Don't feel stupid. You should never feel bad. This is how they did it. And we talk 2 or 3 chapters in my book, Fire Your Financial Advisor, Randy, about how they kind of built the system to win and beat everyday retirees, and how they kind of layered fee upon fee upon fee. So what we do here at Golden Reserve is, I think everyone should just see what they're paying, right? Call me old fashioned, but if I want someone to, shovel my driveway, I want to know the total cost. I don't want to have the cost hidden into, shuttle fees, shovel fees, ice fees, sweating
Salt
fees, slip hazardous working conditions under 32-degree fees, all buried into some weird bill I get 3 years later. Like, no, I just want to know what I'm paying. So we found some software at Morningstar that breaks down how much your investments cost to the penny. We break down your advisor fees from your previous statements, what you pay down to the penny, and then we total it for the year. It's that easy. And we say, hey, here's what you're paying this year. And then you, as the consumer, as the retiree, can ask, is it worth it? Am I getting $20,000 worth of service? Am I getting $35,000 worth of service? Am I getting whatever I'm paying worth of service? And you can make that decision. That is actually how most ultra high net worth family offices operate. It's a flat fee. It's not a net. It's not an investment fee, because that's what really, really high net worth people want to see. They want to see, what am I paying each year in total? So we do that for you. People are nervous. Your financial advisor will never know. We're doing it based off the statements. So like when people bring their statements in, our computer programs just run those through the software and spit out the fees. So if you want to see what you're paying, we do it at no cost as part of every roadmap, Randy. And I think it's the first step of establishing value. Am I getting the value for what am I paying? Are they doing my tax returns? Are they doing my tax map or IRA tax plan? Are they doing legal docs for me? Are they doing an income forecast for me? If they're not doing stuff, then it's hard to justify these big fees for doing stock guessing and just, make-believe investment forecasts or some type of computer-generated plan that really doesn't have any customization. I think that's where rubber hits road, when you really start to get the most out of your fee analysis as you decide what's worth the services you're being provided.
It's kind of an eye-opening moment during the retirement planning meeting when we do the fee analysis. And I mean, even if you just come in with a 401k and you find out this is what it's costing you in fees, you had no idea you were paying fees. And it's like, wow, what could I do with that money in retirement? And that's a great question. Let's get that one answered for you. Give us a call. Give us a look on our website, getyourroadmap.com. Getyourroadmap.com. That's a great place to start. There'll be a place to put a little information in there, and the team from Golden Reserve will reach out to you to sit down and say, hey, what are you interested in talking about? What do you want to know about retirement? How can we help? Every year, Greg, we've done this story maybe a couple of times a year. It's what they say we need for retirement. One of these days, I'm going to find out where the building is. It says they say. In any event, last year, the number that they were saying that we needed for retirement was $1.46 million. This year, it's $1.26 million. And the reason it's gone down $200,000 is inflation is down. So, Greg, am I supposed to feel so much better about my retirement this year? Inflation is down. Now I can do it. Last year I couldn't.
So, Randy, let me put this in perspective so that my blood pressure doesn't go over 200. We all know that,
there's a problem there. Yes.
They like to get my blood pressure up.
Yes, they do.
So if I said, hey, Randy, we found out that everyone has to wear medium-size underwear.
This is a problem.
Because that's just the numbers we came up with.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what everybody's going to get. Do you know how uncomfortable? I would have a thong, Randy. I would be the thong dude. It would be so uncomfortable to sit down. It would take 2 or 3 people to get these things on me.
Oh,
so now that you got that visual in your head, let's talk.
I was just going to say.
You're welcome. Happy weekend. Have a nice weekend, Randy, and the rest of you listeners. The reason this is silly is, first of all, generalities are for nothing more than clickbait. This is just the cat that's juggling, or the action scene. This is just to get you to click. This is lunacy. And it's lunacy because it divides. There's two parallels of where you should never listen to magic numbers, ever. The first of which is that the number itself is made up. There's no data that shows what this means, because the data would show that on the date of everyone's death, all these accounts were hitting zero. Do you think that's how they figured this out? No. They're like, oh, you know what? We got 1 million people that all died perfectly with their last check bouncing.
Never happens, yeah.
It never happens, right? So they're making this up, and they're making something up with whatever assumptions or changes they ever need. We already know if you have $500,000 to $3 million, we already know what you're going to spend by and large. Now, there's outliers, but it's not a big number. It's just not. I know people are like, well, I'm going to spend all this. You say you will. And then you, after about a year and a half, you run out of stuff to buy. It just stops being fun. All right, I've got 2 new cars. I've got, my place in Florida. Now it's like I've bought everything at REI. I have all new fishing gear. I've got 2 new shotguns. Whatever your poisons are, you go through it. That just shows you that the spending in retirement is a spike that follows by a huge lull for the next 15 to 20 years. Now, there's going to be travel that will be consistent. But because of this magic number is so dependent on how you live your life, step 1. And step 2, when we're talking about, the made up $1.26 million number, they never talk about spending principal. Like, how hard it would be for baby boomers to just burn through $1.5 million, $1.25 million. That's not how they live a life. It's not how you guys listening have lived your life. And they're ignoring you. And they do this so that you work longer and that you take more risk in retirement. So when we talked about our income forecast, we show you essentially what would be left after 25 years. And we do that every year. Not just if you come in and get a roadmap, we do your first one, obviously, as a complimentary part of our roadmap process. But going forward, we update it every year to show you, hopefully, to spend more money. We actually do the opposite of what the industry does. We try to get you to spend more money because we show you that, look, this account's getting bigger every year. You can spend more money and not even start spending principal. Come on, have some more fun, do another trip, because most people don't do things because they're afraid they're going to run out of money. That's the real, roadblock to retirement. So we're trying to knock that roadblock down for you. And one of the big things to make that happen is to make sure some of the largest risks of retirement are addressed. Things like fees, taxes, market risk, long-term care, and then of course the income, forecasting. These things are things that could really hurt you, right? Like if you don't get your fees right, you end up paying $20,000 a year. I mean, shoot, Randy, that's $200,000 a decade. That's $600,000 retirement. You screw up $1 million IRA tax plan, you could end up paying almost half to Uncle Sam of your IRA. Long-term care, we know the cost, $10,000 or $12,000 a month. I mean, that could really add up for a 3 to 5 year stay. Market risk, if you have all your money on the blackjack table and we have another 2009, 9 and 10, another 2022, or even a 2025 of what we've seen this year, you could lose a big chunk of that savings taking risks that you might not need. Addressing these things versus chasing magic numbers is the real secret sauce of our retirement planning, Randy. I think it's very important to see where your plan stands against these 4 huge risks, which we address when we build every complimentary roadmap.
Financial advisors love to talk about buckets of money and think about your money as a bucket. And there's holes in your bucket. One of the biggest holes is you. You're going to spend a lot of money in retirement. We hope you do, and we hope you enjoy it. But taxes and fees and all the healthcare issues, all these things are leaks in your bucket. What if we could plug some of those leaks and put more of that money in your pocket? That's the whole idea here, is to give you confidence to spend in retirement. Enjoy yourself. Give us a look on our website. Let's start the conversation. GetYourRoadmap.com is our website. GetYourRoadmap.com. There's a place for you to put some information in there so our team can reach out to you and just start the conversation there. All right, Greg, here's the big financial question of the day. Were you a fan of the show Cheers? Did you watch Cheers? Or you watch it in reruns?
I'm a child of the 90s, of course.
Yeah.
Child of the 90s. That was great. Sam, Woody, Carla.
Yep. Norm. Oh, we lost Norm. George Wendt passed away, and he had so many great lines, and I picked out one of my favorites right here for you.
Afternoon, everybody.
Norman?
Hey, what's happening, Norm? It's a dog-eat-dog world, Sammy, and I'm wearing milk-bone underwear.
That is classic. I mean, that was a fun show. It really was. A lot of great writing, a lot of great shows. Woody was certainly one of my favorite characters there. But, classic lines from Norm. How about some classic lines from the financial industry that you and I talk about all the time? You'll pay fewer taxes in retirement. Don't tap into your 401k. until the government tells you you have to. Hang in there. The market always comes back. They're classics. They're classics. Are they? Should they be classics, though, Greg? There's a lot of misinformation that you've got to kind of sift through as you sit down with people, isn't there?
When you hear something like you'll pay fewer taxes in retirement, well, of course, you don't have any income anymore. You're not working. So your income tax is your biggest tax for most most working adults in America. So when you retire, you're not working. So that makes sense. But then it's counterintuitive, or I should say, it's then makes no correlation on when they tell you wait to touch your 401k. But you're like, you just told me my taxes are as low as they ever be, because we know the IRA is going to be taxed no matter what, right? Mm-hmm. It's just a question of when and how much. You aren't going to just die and have this tax liability disappear. I think actually some people believe that. I think they think, oh, if I die, my kids will just inherit my IRA. No, they'll inherit your IRA, plus they'll pay taxes at their tax rates, not yours. And we all know, taxes are probably going to go up, Randy. They're lowest they've ever been in the history of America. Right. So, and we got a bunch of debt and a bunch of weird stuff going on. And, if I was a betting man, I'd say taxes are going to go up. So not only are you losing an opportunity to get taxes paid on your IRA at historically low rates, they may go up, let alone the widows and kiddos penalty we talked about earlier in the show, where when a spouse dies, you go from a couple to single rate, so your rates increase. And then when it goes to your kids, the kiddos penalty, obviously you get taxed at your kids' rates, and they have to take it all out over 10 years. That's a scary thing, Randy. So our tax plan is built internally by our team of CPAs. It's part of every roadmap we build. We do it at no cost for people coming in, kicking tires. And it shows you where we think you should detax your IRA, how much every year, and for how many years. Most plans are about 7 to 10 years on average. And we show you how much to take out. And then not only do that, but for our clients, we update it every year. We update the tax plan every year based on the size of their accounts, tax law changes, whatever the case may be. We update that tax plan. Our team of CPAs, I should say, update that tax plan. And then, from there, we push it forward and make sure it's executed every year until you get all of your money out of that tax time bomb and into an after-tax account or a Roth that grows tax-free. That's the ideal with the tax planning portion. Then we have the, hang in there, the market always comes back comment, which makes me want to scream. The reality is they're not wrong, right? So far, right? So far, the market has always came back. It's just a question of when, how much, how long does it take? But also, are you still in the market when it does? And the reason that this doesn't work great for retirees is because if you put yourself in your shoes right now, all right, put yourself in a retiree shoes, Randy. And if they're sitting there listening to this show and they just retired and this happens, right? And they have $1 million. And a couple months ago, the stock market dropped about 20%. Right. So let's say you retired the day before that fall happened. So you've worked 30 years and you lost 20% of your life savings in a month. I think it was March. I want to say it was March. March was
beginning of April. Yeah.
And you're sitting there looking at your financial advisor and they're saying, stay the course. And you're saying, I literally just lost, 5 years of work. In a month or a week in some, if it was right after the tariff announcement. Do you think they're going to say, I'm going to stay the course? What are they going to say, Randy?
They're going to say, sell out, get me into cash, take me out of this market, get me off this crazy thing.
And then what happens, Randy?
And then the market goes back up 12% in one day and you kick yourself in the head.
Yep. That happens all the time. It's called, that's called the boomerang, where most retirees can't handle or stomach losing even more money and going deeper in the hole. So they pull out. And they pull out and they lose all the upside. So then they end up losing 20% of their life savings in a month right at retirement. Not only that, the sequence of returns issue is very real. So let's say you were fortunate enough and you go down there, you're like, hey, look, I lost 20%. But I also, let's say it does come back. Let's say it does come back up 20%. Do you have the same amount of money? No, because winning 20% back on a smaller number does not get you to even. And I think that sequence of return risk is also very real. We know that about every decade, give or take a year or two, we have a rough go. That's just been how it's played out the last 30 or 40 years. Every decade, we have a rough year or two. And, it could be a couple years. It could be 3 or 4 years. It could change. So if you don't need risk, why would you take it? So our market flashlight, Randy, breaks down exactly how much risk you have in the market and what it could mean in dollars if those specific holdings experienced a time period where the market went down so that you can see, are you comfortable losing $718,000, $213,000, $444,000? We make it real based on a previous time period of how that holding performed so that you can say, that doesn't feel right. Or wait, that does feel right. That's the right amount of risk. I think I'm comfortable with that as long as I have some upside. The market obviously analysis is, the market breakdown shows that for every, roadmap we build, we do it at no charge, Randy. And it gives people some real perspective on, do I even need to be taking this risk in the first place? What's it really getting me? Because does 20% returns change my life? Probably not. But does 20% losses? Absolute.
Yeah. The what if questions are so important in the retirement planning meeting, saying, okay, you've got this plan. What if the market goes down 20, 30, 40%? What if taxes go up? What if inflation goes up? Ask those what if questions. And that's really what we build around when we build that roadmap for retirement, the what ifs of retirement. Give us a call. Give us a look. Let's talk through your retirement and how it's going to work. And if your money is in a place where it is really susceptible to going down in a market situation, getyourroadmap.com is our website. All right. So one of the things that people will do as they look through their retirement questions is they'll go online. They'll find people like Susie Orman. And Susie Orman was talking just recently about retirement and how much cash you should have on the side. Emergency fund, 3 months, 6 months, a year. Susie Orman says we should have 3 to 5 years worth of cash, easily accessible without selling any assets. I read that. I thought that seems like a lot. Greg, what's your opinion on that one?
Say something stupid, Susie. Let's go. Do it.
Make some headlines.
Say something so unfoundly ridiculous that it just gets people like Randy to put it on this show so that I blow a gasket. I'm not going to bite, Randy. I'm not going to be mean.
Okay.
I did say something stupid. I guess that's kind of mean.
All right.
But Susie's not been relevant for a while now. I mean, she's kind of like an aging actress or actor that just kind of lost. It's kind of like she's like the Julia Roberts of, does that mean? Hasn't been in any good movies in forever.
Okay.
Kind of fading into obscurity, kind of, still beating her chest over some things she did 30 years ago. I think she lives in the Bahamas.
Yeah.
She's not even
kind of out of touch.
Yeah. She just, you just wonder where she's coming at. I read some of this. I couldn't make any sense of it, and it's just a typical use your name equity to get some clicks so that people buy some, like, I don't know, Spanx underwear or something, right? Like, they click on it and a bunch of ads come up, and that's the whole idea. I don't even know what else to say. Like, if you're sitting there and saying, all right, I'm going to put, to our perfect example, 5 years of cash. So she's basically saying, let's say you put $40,000 or $50,000 in cash, or you spend $40,000 or $50,000 a year. She's saying put $250,000 in a bank account and just stare at it, I guess. And by the way, retirement's 20 years. So, and you spend less every year in retirement. So I have a hard time saying this. Randy, what were you about to say?
I was just going to say, how many people that walk through your doors have 3 to 5 years of cash on the side in retirement? Can't be a lot.
None-ish. Yeah. None-ish. I don't know.
None-ish. Somewhere around none.
None-ish. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe someone that's very distrustful of the market and the government and all that stuff. But I think the way I look at this is the benchmark of the industry has been wrong. And I'm going to pivot a little bit because I don't even want to give Susie any more credit. I want to stop talking about her. I'm going to stop talking about people that I think should just fade into obscurity.
Well, let me ask this. Do you think she said that because interest rates are up and now you can get a little bit more for your cash, so now would be the time to put 3 to 5 years of cash in an account?
That's not how the article reads.
Okay.
If she made that argument, maybe. But I would
she
also
didn't.
She didn't. And
okay.
She called it kind of the just in case fund.
Okay.
So she made it feel like it was like it needs to be real liquid and real accessible like tomorrow. I think of things like, let's use annuities. Annuities are super popular with retirees now, like a fixed index annuity or a fixed annuity. You buy a $500,000 annuity, you're guaranteed to have access to that annuity, almost all of them. I'm not aware of any that don't do this, but you get 10%.
Okay.
You get most annuities, you get 10% a year that you can take out for whatever purpose, assuming it's not already an income annuity. So you can access it and get things like, and annuities grow tax deferred. So you could get, I don't know, we're seeing 4 or 5. We saw as high as 6% fixed rates, which are really good. Bonds are a little trickier because you can't get 10% access of a bond. You got to have to either sell the bond or don't sell the bond. And if the bond's trading at a loss, you're going to take a loss if it's not to maturity. So you'll have to ladder bonds 3, 5, 7, 10, and then you can wait till they mature, which is another way you could ensure that you have access to money over periods of time. And a bond will trade at face value when it matures. So if you stack up your spending with the bond ladder, that's another way you could attack this. But I do think you're throwing away meaningful returns if you're just sitting with the money under your mattress, especially such a large chunk. I think what she doesn't realize is, 3 to 5 years. I mean, that could be 25, 30% of some people's retirement that they need to grow a little bit to do all the things they want, because she also said some goofy stuff that you need like 4 million to retire, didn't she? Or
yeah,
I can't remember.
The number's really been huge.
8 million, 7 million, 4 million. I can't remember what number she said, if I'm being
it's
honest.
It's a big number.
It was so silly. It just went through my brain. I said, I'm not going to remember this because it's so ridiculous. So I think when I break down, let's pivot off Susie for a second, because we could talk about this forever about just her nonsense. I think the financial industry has it wrong. And you're going to say, Greg, that's all you talk about. I know. But I think they have it wrong how they benchmark investments. And what I mean by that is they benchmark against indexes. So they say, I can beat the S&P. I can beat the NASDAQ. So they base all your investments off chasing an index that literally means nothing to any retiree in America. The index doesn't matter at all. Who cares what the S&P does? What should be mattering is I should be indexing and building my investment strategy on how many times Randy wants to go out to eat each week, when he wants to go to Florida, what he wants to do this year, and can I produce enough money and return to ensure that he can do that for the next 25 years. That is how I should benchmark retirement. Yet the entire industry chases things that have no correlation whatsoever. They're going to make up inflation stuff that no one understands, even the economists. It doesn't matter. All you have to do is look at your bank account and have a calculator, and you can figure out every year if you're going to be okay. And if you can't, we can help. Our roadmap does that, Randy. We want to benchmark you and your retirement goals to show you what's possible versus chasing things that don't make any sense, which a lot of times make you take more risk than you need, pay more fees than you need to pay to get through retirement safely and doing everything you want, because that's the real goal, is doing everything you want in retirement.
What do you really need to retire? That's a great question. Let's get that answered for you. GetYourRoadmap.com is our website. All right, so many of us have a year or an age that we want to retire. You say, okay, when I'm 68, I'm going to retire. Okay, great. When? Do you have a month picked out? Should you have a month picked out? Somebody wrote into the Market Watch advisor column saying, my accountant says I shouldn't retire mid-year because I'll have to pay back a bunch of my Social Security. So I guess he made a whole bunch of income January through June, then he retired, and that affected his Social Security and Medicare. I guess that's kind of what they're talking about. So, I mean, with that thing in mind, should you actually retire in January and not retire in July? I mean, should that make a difference, Greg?
These type of articles make me want to scream. The guy made a bunch of money. So what he's saying is don't make any money. And by not making any money on your planned retirement date over the course of a year, you'll have a better kickoff to your Medicare payments the following year because it's based off the previous year's income. There you go. Here's what I will tell anyone. Let's do the math. I've yet to see someone that's making $1 million and saying, hey, I've got a really easy run here. I'm making $500,000 or $100,000 or $200,000, whatever they're making. They're making peak earning dollars. And they're like, you know what? I could save like $62 in Medicare savings next year. I might just mail it in and retire. I could write out 6 more months and put another $100,000 in our bank accounts. But you know what? I'm going to save $68 next year in Medicare payments. So I think I'm going to just quit now. No, don't do that. It's like robbing Peter to pay Paul here. Let us do the math. We'll show you the Medicare payments. So when we do our tax plans that I talked about earlier, our CPAs, we factor in the Medicare increases, and we do factor in when we're converting your IRA, obviously that's income. So we don't want to spike it and incur large Medicare jumps. We factor that into our analysis. Now, at times, you can calculate it and say it's worth the Medicare increase because the tax savings are there. So you want to net off all your savings versus the additional cost. So by paying more Medicare, you may unfortunately have a little bit bigger bill there, but you'll save even more in tax savings over the course of the plan. You just got to put it all together. You can't look at each in a silo like, oh, my Medicare went up. Yeah, but your tax savings quadrupled.
Okay.
And I think that's how I would look at this income. Oh my gosh, my Medicare went up. but you made $500,000. Like, I probably would eat it and just go ahead and ride that one out for a year. And then the following year, because it's only for a year.
And it resets.
Yeah, it resets.
Okay.
So it's like, I think some of this stuff is
clickbait.
Yeah. I mean, it's goofy stuff that people probably do. You know, I would have someone like Golden Reserve or a company like us do the math for you so that you can be sure. And when we're sitting down with you, the process doesn't change whether it's virtually or in person. We sit down and get a bunch of information to build your roadmap in the first meeting. And then we show you the roadmap in the second meeting. And when we do that, our goal is to show you, is there any gaps? Let's look at your fees. Here's where your fees are. We think that's just right. We think it's a little high, or we think it's a lot high. You know, we rank it, and, you know, there's like 3 scores. You know, here's your tax plan. Well, you don't have a tax plan. So let's talk about how you'll get your IRA out of this taxable account to a non-taxable account, or a tax-deferred growth, you know, account like a Roth. Tax-free account like a Roth. You know, market, hey, you got a lot of market risk here. This is more than we think that you need to be taking on. Here's what we'd recommend. You know, then we go to, you know, we pivot to, you know, long-term care. Hey, let's sit down with our attorneys. Let's see what legal options are out there to hedge some of this risk. We don't want to sell anymore. We don't sell long-term care insurance, but we will build asset protection trusts that help you shield some of your assets for your surviving spouse and for your kids in case a nursing home emergency or long stay occurs. We also tack on that income forecast. Here's what your accounts would be worth in 25 years if the accounts grow at 5% a year. And you spend the same amount you did the previous year. And by doing all those things, we want to give you a very good snapshot of not just, because most people are just going to talk investments and then build an income budget that they don't even know you. It doesn't make any sense. So we don't build income budgets. We do income forecasts because we think those are a much more effective way to show you what you're actually doing, and then push it forward to show you what's left in 25 years. We think that you're grown up. You can manage your own budget, right? You can manage your own life. We just want to give you the support and help to do it in a way where you don't drive off the cliff. And our approach has been very successful. We've been able to grow across the country. And I think the roadmap has been the magic that's allowed people to say, hey, look, for no cost, I could see where my plan stacks up against what Golden Reserve thinks are some of the largest risks. And are there any gaps? Are there any things they need to fill in? And if they want to take that information and take it back to their financial advisor, that's great. If they want to make a change, that's even better.
We'd love to have that opportunity with you to sit down and talk through your retirement. Give us a look at our website, getyourroadmap.com. I want to thank you so much for listening today, and we'll see you next time here on Fire Your Financial Advisor.